Back in 1995, some astronomers had an ambitious idea. They wanted to push the relatively new Hubble telescope to its limits and peer deeper into the cosmos than ever before. The astronomers chose a section of the night sky above our North Pole and had the Hubble do over 300 exposures over the course of 10 days, soaking up the tiny amount of light present in what otherwise appeared to be a pitch-black corner of the sky. The area of the image was small. If you put a tennis ball 100 meters away, a little shorter than the length of a football field, that would be the size of the section of sky that they photographed. And when the photo was developed, in this otherwise featureless corner of the sky, the astronomers counted almost 3,000 galaxies. And each galaxy, on average, contains 100 million stars. This image is called the Hubble Deep Field, and it's worth a search. For much of the ancient world, the heavens were seen as a constant, unchanging, perfectly ordered, and eternal reality. So Jesus' words in the gospel were powerful for those who first heard them. The sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light, and the stars will be falling from the sky, and the powers in the heavens will be shaken. And while discoveries such as the Hubble Deep Field helped this statement to have a similar impact for us as it must have had for our ancestors, our advances in understanding have also shown that scientifically, Jesus was right. The stars in the heaven, however numerous, are in fact not eternal. But there's an interesting addition to this statement in our gospel. Jesus says the sun will be darkened, and indeed scientists estimate that we only have a meager 10 million years before that comes to pass. But he also says that this generation will not pass away until all those things have taken place. What does he mean here? We can certainly look up at virtually the same night sky as that generation. But there was something cataclysmic in the lives of the generation that Jesus was addressing that was yet to pass. In the year 70 AD, less than 40 years after Jesus died, the temple in Jerusalem, and in fact much of the city itself, was destroyed by the Romans. The temple was seen as an earthly representation of the heavenly temple, but in addition to being an image of the heavenly temple, the temple in Jerusalem was seen as a sort of microcosm of the entirety of creation, striving together to offer right worship to the Creator. It was even decorated with vines and plants to be reminiscent of Eden. And since the temple was seen this way, especially for the Jews, at its destruction, it was very much like all of creation was tumbling down. So Jesus in this gospel is holding two things in tension. First, he hints at the grandeur of creation, and that despite its seeming permanence, it will come to an end. And second, he highlights that for us, while this end is not as distant as the death of the sun and moon and stars, it is just as final. This end of creation was prophesied in Daniel, who also spoke of stars. But he was less concerned with what would become of the brilliant and innumerable stars of the heavens, and more concerned with each of us, as he wrote, "But the wise shall shine bright like the splendor of the firmament, and those who lead the many to justice shall be like the stars forever." It is very easy to put our hopes in the things of this world. And often we settle for things much less permanent than even our ancestors did, some of whom worshipped the stars. But in terms of permanence, even the stars themselves have more in common with money and material goods than they do with the things that endure forever. And the stars are in fact a pitiful point of comparison to the brilliance of the wise and the just already enjoying eternity. These apocalyptic images are not meant to unduly frighten us, but as our liturgical year comes to a close and as winter approaches, they are meant to be memento mori, reminders of death. And Jesus' words to end our gospel, that only the Father knows the day and the hour, are a reminder that if the Father is preparing for an end to the hundreds of billions of stars in a spot the sky of a tennis ball, and the spot in the sky the size of a tennis ball across a football field, how much more should we be preparing for our own end? We can cling to the minuscule created things within our grasp or the immeasurable created things beyond our grasp, but either way, none of it will persist. The same was true for the priestly sacrifices of the Old Covenant. They were never sufficient or lasting. But as our reading from Hebrews reminds us, God has offered us the one lasting sacrifice, the one offering by which we can be made perfect forever. We cannot let ourselves be deceived by the supposed permanence or sufficiency of the things of this world. If we do, in the end, we will be left with nothing. But bearing in mind our own end and the end of all created things, we must truly echo our psalmist, "You are my inheritance, O Lord," so that we too can hope to shine like the stars for all eternity.